Yeah, welcome into Running It Straight here on SENZ. Big thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Another week of rugby league in the books, and we're going to be talking about it all for the next hour. A big win for the Warriors. Well, not a big win, but a tough win, a gritty win for the Warriors over the Bulldogs on Sunday at Mount Smart. You can get involved on 8833 or give us a call 0800 150 811. Would love to hear from you. And a big shout out to everyone watching online on Facebook and on YouTube. Kempy, the NRL, and we say this all the time, is the gift that keeps on giving, because not only did we have another cracking round, we've got all these stories as well. Jack Whiten, whether he's going to stay with the Canberra Raiders, Joseph Suali'i leaving rugby league, and then we've got this story about Moses Sully and his mate coming over from Manly. It's just it's all go outside of a Thursday to Sunday.
It's like the players have been given a voice, Sam. You know what I mean? Like the one with Moses Sully, Lee talking about I didn't want to come here anyway, is like out the gate conversation to be having, especially when Anthony Griffin is under the pump and there's talk of three ex-players and a preferred option in and around going to coach that team 4 rounds into the competition. He has to be special. And I guess short on odds to not finish the season there. The other one you missed is Clint Cuthbertson.
That one as well,
Parramatta.
Yeah. Yes, that's a big one.
They just signed him on $1.2 million for the next couple of years and come out and say, well, we're actually looking for a decent fullback. Like, where are you coming from, Parramatta? Like, seriously.
It is bizarre.
The Dennis Fitzgerald days have returned. Like I said this morning on Izzy and Kemp for breakfast, I think there's a fight happening between Mark O'Neill and Brad Arthur, because I can't make any sense of that conversation whatsoever. Premier fullback being told that they're looking elsewhere does not make sense. The only sense I can make out of it is that recruitment and the head coach are fighting. Yeah.
And who would they get as well that really is going to be an upgrade on Clint Gutherson? I know the name Jaden Campbell was thrown about from the Titans, but I'd hardly say
that's hardly an upgrade.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're looking for a game breaker. So whether or not they're trying to look for someone young and who isn't quite highly touted that has potential, I'm not sure. But you're right. There's a lot going on outside of the games, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit later on in the hour. Coming up between now and 4, Cameron George, Warriors CEO, will join us in around about 10 minutes' time. If you've got any questions for Cam, text them through on 8833. He's very good with his time, and he's happy to come on and chat. So if you want to ask him a question, you can text her on 8833. I imagine that's going to be a lot more positive than it was the last time he had him on, which of course was last year when things weren't going so well. And if you've also got any thoughts on the Warriors' match of the weekend against the Bulldogs and their upcoming game against the Sharks, then you can also get in touch, 8833 0800 150 811. We always start the show, Kempy, just having a look back on the game from the weekend. And for the Warriors, that was against the Bulldogs at Mount Smart. They were behind for almost all of the game until Sean Johnson broke them apart in the 66th minute. They get a 2-point win. They go 3-1. First game back at Mount Smart Stadium. I guess just firstly, how impressed were you with the win, and how important was it, do you think, that they opened the Mount Smart campaign with a W?
There's a couple of things here to look at, Sam. First of all, the competition is one of those competitions that are so condensed, it's going to go right down to the wire to make the 8. I think it'll go between 1 and 15 of the teams can make the 8. You look at it at the moment, you win a game on the weekend, you're jumping so far above other teams, it's ridiculous. And again, this weekend's game shows that you can't really settle on a multi of winners, because anyone playing each other can get out there and win that football. There were so many good things about the Canterbury game on the weekend. The first one was finally we're home, month into the season, and 19,000 fans decided to come out when there was a Blues game just being played across town as well. So premier football in town at the moment is definitely the Warriors. People had showed that we've missed that through the 2-year COVID period, and to have football back at Mount Smart on a Sunday afternoon, which is the time where you play rugby league in this country at the right time, was a great move by Cam George to get that across the line at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And to get a win and the closeness of that game was always how it was statted up.
Yeah.
Like the stats said, we were going to get a really good, close game of football, and I think we got that in a pretty decent, resilient effort from the Warriors, which everyone should be happy about. So I walked away from that game happy on a lot of fronts. The first one was, again, Sean Johnson showed up and turned up the heat on his man management and the way that he played the game. Having Cameron Ciraldo come out and say, the difference in the game was Sean Johnson is probably the biggest accolade that you can get from the other coach. But just across the board, they had some changes. Mitch Barnett wasn't there, Wade Egan wasn't there, and the players went in and got the job done. I thought they went away from what was probably the game plan, which was to stick to the middle of the pitch and go through the middle. We were talking about that all through the commentary. And that's probably because Lussick really hasn't had that much time in first grade. But, at the end, they went through the middle. It was Sean Johnson went through the middle with 30 minutes to go, and they wrapped that game up. And I think this part of the season, a month, and if you said, the Warriors are going to be 3-1, you would be doing cartwheels down Queen Street.
Absolutely. Jacob Kraz scored in the second minute. It was a soft try, and the Warriors do need to sort out their slow starts. The Josh Adokar try was surrounded in a little bit of controversy with the play just earlier where Viliami Kikau seemed to strip the ball off Adam Pompey. No try call. They get the scrum. They go and score off the back of it. But the Warriors did well to stick in it and hold out to the end. Apart from Sean Johnson, who we've talked a lot about, who was another standout for you because Tohu Harris obviously goes off injured. Marata Niokora spends some time off for an HIA. There's no Wade Egan, who's been such a big part of the team through the first 3 rounds. So who else, sort of aside from Sean, really stood up for you?
Oh, look, I've got to give the middle a big rap. I think that they went through a heap of energy. Again, they had a bad start. They went through a heap of energy early on. They had to rotate their big guys. At one stage, they had Tohu Adam Whanua-Blake, Bunty Ofua and Tom Ali on the bench, which you never want. You want at least 2 of them on the pitch. And, of course, most of our smaller middle players were all out there just holding the team together before they made that change and they come on and Sean goes through the middle. So I give the middle a big rap here for just hanging into the game and not really giving in. I think they've been the unsung heroes at the moment because you've got to think about it. There's a reason why Sean's playing so well, and it's on the back of the middle setting the tone. They did that up against the Cowboys. They struggled against the Bulldogs to lay that foundation, but they hung in there, and Canterbury just weren't good enough to take them. You know what I mean? So they very rarely, the boys in the middle, get the chocolates and the accolades. But I'm going to give it to them. I thought they were outstanding.
Big test this weekend against the Sharks, who absolutely flew past the Dragons. Probably the performance of the round. Nico Hines back into the squad and straight back into his work from last year. And of course, the Warriors have a few changes. They're bringing some guys back in. Wade Egan does come back into the hooking role, but then they've lost to Mighty Martin, so it's going to be Ronald Volkmer making his 2023 first grade debut. We will talk about that game a little bit later on, but we are going to take a break, come back with Cam George. Like I said, if you've got any questions for Cam, you can just text them through on 8833. We will be chatting to Cam George right after the break here on Running It Straight. Thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Yes, we are talking the great game of rugby league here on SENZ. Running it straight with myself alongside Kempy, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. And a great pleasure now to welcome into the show Warriors CEO Cam George. They are flying at the moment, 3-1 through the first 4 rounds. Of course, they've got some very tough games ahead of them, but they'll be pretty happy, I think, with where they sit. And Cam joins us on the line now. G'day, Cam.
Good afternoon, gents.
Hey Cam, it's Kemp, mate. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon on Running It Straight. Mate, you talked about it earlier on in the year when we were at the launch of the season, and you talked about effort. You must be happy 3-1 after the first month. The team's going all right?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good start for the guys. They've earned it through their efforts and passion and commitment. I think we've all seen that. It's a long marathon before them, but look, all you can do is take game by game, day by day, and training run by training run, and they're all, as a collective, doing really well, and let's hope it keeps going.
Yeah, you talked a lot about getting it right off the football field, Cam. Do you when you're looking at it and reviewing, I guess, the game at home and the games are away, are you looking at improvements, and where are those improvements that you can further see across the football department?
I just think they've got to keep their eye on the short-term prizes that exist for them. Like this week, it's the Sharks, but before that, it's training days that they've got to get right, and it's about making sure they turn up, prepare well, and Webby's got to prepare well with his team, and that's got to translate to a good training session. And they're the things that we're seeing, that the short-term focuses are really working. and the clarity of the boys' roles, both coaching, staff, players. They're very clear on what's expected, and I think that frees up a lot of headspace and gives the boys some confidence that they know what they're doing, and on and off the field, they're all working well together across the footy department, and that's what we're seeing.
Mate, if I was looking at the criteria for the players that have come into the side, Chance, Marata, you've got Mitch there as well as Tamori. The biggest one for them that I think is part of their criteria is that they're very resilient. Are you comfortable with those blokes so far this year? And are we possibly looking at maybe someone else joining the team? Because I think you're still looking for one other.
Yeah, look, there's if I go back to, I think, pre-Christmas when we were stuck on the Gold Coast in 2021, that's when I first met Murata. He was living next door in another hotel, Parramatta, and we called up for lunch, and that's when we started talking about coming home. And I only met Mitch on Zoom, and if you start looking at those players that we talked to a long time ago, we wanted people that were extremely competitive, people that wanted to win at all costs, and just went after every winning possible chance they could get in a game, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a loose ball, or whatever it be. They all carry those attributes. Now, T come up a bit later in the piece, but, Webby had a relationship with him because of coaching him back in the Tigers, and, Todd Payton texted me straight away, and he said, mate, you just signed the toughest bastard in the NRL. They all carry those attributes. We knew they would rub off. We knew their tries, and we've got them mixed up with a bunch of the young guys, and that allows Tohu and those guys and Shawnee to just get on with their business rather than trying to carry a big workload. And I think the biggest benefactor is, look at the way Adam Fanua-Blake's playing now. He's got work rate around him, and he's really loving running off the back of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Cam. Look, we get a lot of the reaction here across SENZ, across all our shows from fans and pundits, and I'm sure you guys know as well. There's just so much positivity around the club. I know we're only 4 rounds in, but yeah, everyone's sort of on this hype train for the Warriors, which it's been pretty negative the last few years. I guess are you surprised at how quickly the corner's been turned? I know that was the goal, bringing in Webster and bringing in these new recruits, but I guess you're surprised at how quickly, the attitude of the club has turned around, it's particularly with the fans?
I'm probably not, because I got to know the guys before anyone else did, in terms of those players, by knowing them when they were signing and understood who they were, and I know maybe for a long time, but what I do know and what we're all excited about is there's a lot more improvement in these guys. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but connecting that improvement up with the long-term view of bringing in our young kids in and around them and developing our pathways, and that's what I'm all excited about. And it's just breathing a sense of belief amongst the whole club. What you saw on Sunday was the NRL winning a really good game, and a tough game at that, but it was actually a good club day because the New South Wales Cup team played really well. They were really good in their game, and the boys in the 19s, they didn't have the best day, but, the crowd was there. It was a really good club day, and that's what, we want to build, and we want to build off the back of. And you guys commentating there were having fun, I saw, and, it's really great. And everyone's a part of it. So as the club, it's turning. There's a long way to go, but we've got a heap of improvement on and off the field, and we just got to keep getting it right, and don't expect us to stop now. We're not resting on our hands, but it's not done, and it won't be done tomorrow either. It'll be done months down the track. No,
absolutely can. And like I said, that you can just sense with everyone that there is just this real positive vibe through the fans, through the club, like you said, through the juniors. It's really cool to see. Richard's text in here saying, question for Cam, after a few rough years, a lot of criticism around decisions the club has made with players, coaches, etc. There's obviously still a lot to achieve, but how does it make Cam feel personally to see the club where it is now and how much potential is being realised? And I know, Cam, when you were with us last year, you talked about how tough it was for you, personally, the last few years. How have you how have you been tracking the last 6 months?
Oh, look, it's part of the job. You don't go into these roles and make decisions to please everyone. As you guys know, Kemp knows better than anyone because he's been right in it, that you know a lot more detail when you're right in it. You can understand why you're making these decisions, and unfortunately, the public don't get to see those reasons too often. But look, it's tough, but we've held our nerve of steel, and we've just kept pushing through. And I truly believe in Webby and his vision, and hence why he's here, and the players. And we're still looking for those quality players. We'd rather go without than get someone that's going to take 3 years of, causing us problems. So I'm fine, mate. I just want the fans to be happy, and I want the players to succeed. That's all I want, mate. That's for everyone else.
Well, keep winning, Cam, and they'll stay happy. I can trust. I can trust that process. Hey, look, I just want to talk a little bit about the competition, and you're talking about the second grade getting a win on the weekend. Personally, I think that the second grade competition is a far distance between first grade. Are you happy, because now what we're seeing over this next week and the coming weeks are the injuries that are starting to creep into teams? Are you happy with the depth in the club at the moment?
Oh, Kenny, I don't think we are ever going to be happy now to change the rules with that 11-day concussion stand down. Like, that's going to change the dynamics dramatically. Touch wood, some clubs could lose 2 or 3 people in a game. That's gone for the following week. So it's really going to test all clubs. At our particular club, mate, we've got a couple of spots left, but again, we've got some good young kids coming through. We just don't want to waste those 2 spots. We want to do it right for the longer term, but hopefully we can get through the games without too many injuries. But you wouldn't want a great deal more, mate.
No, and just on that, because we've talked about it and the process that the NRL are going through at the moment, how does your club doctor feel, and how do you feel as a CEO when you're being overruled by a doctor in the bunker? Are we going to see an improvement to that process? Yeah,
look, it's hard when they're not on at the ground. Like, that's the part I struggle with in some cases. And mate, I suppose I'm never going to question a doctor, and I don't think any of us ever would. But it's hard when I saw a player the other day go off something like 12 minutes later after the incident, and they've just ran the ball up 3 or 4 times. And the inconsistency that can creep into some players being tapped on the jaw and having to go off, and other players being hit completely hard with whiplash and not going off. That's sort of the part that I struggle with. But look, they're all trying to do the right thing. It's a fast-moving piece, this concussion stuff, and where we get it right and when we get it right, there's more higher-ranked people than me that are looking at it. So hopefully they get it right soon.
Yeah. Hey, mate, I'm just going to say, Cam, just before we let you go, we've been able to switch one of the hosts over to rugby league here. His name's Ian Smith. He's mad cricket and rugby, as you know, and he reckons that if you don't send him some tickets for Napier, he's going to actually disown you and the Warriors once again.
I think his exact line was, you're getting taken off the Christmas card list. That's from Ian Smith.
Can you sort that out, Cam?
I will, mate. Don't worry. I'll get him a meat pie and tomato sauce as well. You're right.
Love it. Hey, Cam, thanks a lot for joining us. Keep up the good work down there, mate. I know that the train's back on the tracks and heading in the right direction. All the best against Cronulla this weekend.
I'll just going to derail soon. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, good stuff, Cam. Cam George there, CEO of the Warriors. And look, it's funny, Kempy, because we're only 4 rounds in, and I'm always a person that tries to stay a bit realistic. Not that I'm telling people to calm down, but it's 4 rounds in. We've still got a long season to go. But there is a definite sense and change around the club. You just can feel it, and you can just sense it. Even if we lose a couple of games in these next few weeks, I just think people are, like you said, the train is sort of back on the tracks. That's what it feels like.
The difference too is that it's a great time to do it because the competition is so tight. So you can drop a game and you can win a game. The teams that go on a run are the teams that are going to make it into the 4. And I think the next 4 positions can be fought out between 5th and 15. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a pretty close competition. Why does it feel good? Well, mate, when we're standing down the concourse on Sunday and Campo walked past and give me a cuddle, I said, mate, it feels like 2001 again. You got a redhead in there, and he just started to giggle, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And they got a guy on their side by the name of Mitch Barnett, obviously, who's been likened to a Campo. You've just sort of got those characters in there that like to win football games. Mate, that's half your problem.
Yeah.
Sorted if you have players that want to compete week in, week out. The issue that you got, and why I asked Cam if he was happy about the depth, is when you lose those players, so you've lost Tamati this weekend, you get another one back. But if you lose 2 or 3 of them, then it's hard for the other guys to compete at that level.
Yeah, and we haven't had that that sort of junior system for the last couple of years. So, it's great to have it back. And the New South Wales Cup team beating the Bulldogs, that was the top of the table. Bulldogs hadn't lost a game and first lost to the Warriors on the weekend. The SG Bull side is sort of tracking well too. So it is very, very good to see. I've just seen images up on the TV as well of that game on Sunday, and random fact, but I noticed that they painted or changed the colour of the seats at Mount Smart. So they used to be yellow, they're now blue. And just seeing up on the screen there, it looks a lot more packed because obviously Warriors colours are blue, green and red, so the blue sort of blends in. It looked like a much bigger crowd. So that's just something I noticed from the commentary box up there.
They do that. They do try and get it so that it all blends in and it looks like every seat in the house is full. Look, I think home advantage. One of the big learning things we've learnt from the Breakers this year is that when they've gone overseas, because they've been in that competition for 2 years and been able to compete as if it was a home game, is what the Warriors need to do. But when they're here, turn it into a fortress.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
totally.
If teams want to come here, make them fight for everything that they take away from you. And if they can do that and get a majority of home wins, I think that 8 is well and truly within their reach.
Yeah, and I'd recommend anyone in Auckland to head along to a Warriors game if you haven't been, or maybe you haven't been for a couple of years. Head along because it is one of the sort of loudest crowds you'll get in New Zealand. At an outdoor sporting venue. I mean, the fans are up and about. They are yelling at the referees. They there was a lot. Very vocal, and to the point as well, Kemp, 16-14 is a tough win. Those are the ones that are the difference between you making the 8 and you're not making that. You lose those games, and at the end of the season, you're looking at 2 or 4 points out of the 8, and it's like you go back to those games that were tight, that were only a couple of points in it, you're stuck with it to the end. I think that game against the Bulldogs we're going to look back on that maybe at the end of the season and go, that's one of those ones that, thank goodness we won that.
The ripple effect that when it's at home is that you lose that one and the fans they're deflated. You know what I mean? You win that at home, they feel like they've had to win, the fans too, and they can't wait to get back for the next one. So, to keep the trains on the track, like Cam said, and not be derailed, is you got to get those ones. You can't be in their fight and sort of lose it as they have been doing in recent years. Look, I just think that, like Andrew Webster, what he's keeping at the front of all players' minds is whether or not they're in the team the following week.
Yeah.
And if he, it is a real nervous time when you're a footballer, especially if you're a fringe footballer, to say, man, are they going to name me on Tuesday?
Yep. And I mean, we know how much quality a guy like Josh Curran has, and he's trying to find his way back into the first team side as well. So that's a good sign. We're going to take a break for news, sport and weather. A couple of your texts here to Cam that we didn't get to, unfortunately, just ran out of time. So sorry to those people. But after 3:30, we will talk Warriors Sharks this weekend, and we're also going to have a look at the rest of the round 5 games here. I'm running it straight thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Back after news. 27 away from 4 here on Running It Straight. Thanks for joining us either on the radio or listening live on the app or on Facebook or YouTube. You can text us on 8833. Those will all come through to us as well. We're going to preview this weekend's game between the Sharkies and the Warriors. It's on Sunday evening at PointsBet Stadium in Sydney. We will have the call live here on SENZ, build up from around about 5:30. You've got the 6th place Sharks taking on the 4th place Warriors. The Sharks are heavy favourites. In fact, are so heavy that this reminds me of the Warriors of the last few years, really. They're at $3. When you look at the teams, you'd say they're pretty evenly matched. The only caveat in that being the performance of the Sharks on the weekend. They're really the only team that had a massive blowout, 40 points to 8 over the Dragons. Nico Hines doing what Nico Hines does and just absolutely running the show, Kempy. So you look at these two sides that have been named for this weekend. I'll just quickly run through the Warriors team. Charles Klokstad at fullback, Edward Kossi and Marcelo Montoya, the two wingers. Then Viliami Vailea and Adam Pompey stay in the centres. Ronald Volkman comes in at 5'8", replacing Tamati Martin, who's out with the HIA. Sean Johnson, the number 7. The front rowers are Bunty Afo, Wade Egan, Aidan Fanor-Blake. So good to have Wade Egan back in the team. Jackson Ford, Marata Niokore in the second row. Tohu Harris is the lock. So relatively unchanged apart from Wade, the side that took on the Bulldogs. Then the bench, Dylan Walker, Bailey Siren and Jazz Tavanga, Tom Ali. So few changes, but relatively consistent from Andrew Webster.
Yeah, look, I don't think Tohu will play. I think there'll be a late withdrawal of Tohu out of that side. I'm expecting possibly Jazz Tavanga to go to that 13 position and Curran to come onto the bench. The real change for me is Ronald Volkman in around the back of Sean Johnson here. Like there is a big distant shot of form between first grade and second grade in this competition, and whether or not he can do what Tamari Martin is. It's really about showing up and make sure you're playing a really solid game and staying in it for that 80 minutes. Up against a side, that is absolutely on fire. Britton Nakota across on the Cronulla side, the lines that he ran on the weekend against Nicholas Hines was something. I loved watching it. It was old school. He was very, very good. Nico Hines is something real special. If he doesn't play Origin this year, there's something wrong with that. The kids just keeps on getting better and better. But they're going to have to really dig deep this week. I think they'll have, like I said to you, no Tamari. Then, of course, you got no Mitch Barnett, no Tohu. Now you're starting to talk about injuries taking its toll. And, of course, going over there against Cronulla, that are hot on the back of this one against St. George. We've got to stick with them as best we can for long periods of time and not let them get too far away if they start to play the type of football they played against St. George.
So the Sharks team named on Tuesday, last night, William Kennedy as the fullback, Siona Katoa, Ronaldo Mulatalo on the wings, Jesse Ramian and Siosifa Talakai on the centres, Matt Moylan, Nico Hines in the halves. Then you've got Toby Rudolph, Blake Brayley and Braden Hamlin-Nueli in the front row, Brita Nakora, Tague Wilton and Dale Finucane filling out the back row. And then on the bench, and I think if the Warriors don't have one of the best interchanges in the competition, Kempy, I think the Sharks are actually pretty close. Cameron McInnes, Royce Hunt, Jack Williams and Braden Trindle coming off the interchange. So what do you reckon this weekend? Where do the Warriors have to sharpen up from what you saw against the Bulldogs? Talked about the middle, and the Sharks do have a pretty strong middle as well, but is it going to be out the back? Is it going to be containing Nico Hines and stopping that back line, which is potent, really?
Yeah, the only way you're going to stop Nico Hines is if you stop their middle. Okay, so and you're dead right. Their bench is just as lethal as the players that start on that game, and if they don't get into the grind with them straight away, Nico Hines gets across the advantage line. He is such a different player when he's playing off the front foot than he is having to play back from the line when you see him being put under pressure, as we have done last year through those top teams. Look, if they don't put it this way, if they play like they did against Canterbury, they won't beat the Sharks. All right, they need to win the middle of the park. It's vitally important. Can they do it? Well, I think Wade Egan bringing him back in a hooker, I think that was one of the things that they missed on the weekend was the direction and keeping them. I think why they're going so well at the middle at the moment is because Wade Egan is getting that direction and keeping them moving forward and jumping out of hooker and bringing players onto the football. If they don't do that well on the weekend, then look out.
Richards actually said Kempy, the Wires have had slow starts in every game and their defence and resolve has got them through. Do you think it's essential to start well if they beat the Sharks? He basically said, yep, if they come out too slow, they'll get run off the park. And
he said that, didn't he? Like he said that again, if you listen to the post-match comments of the coach, Andrew Webster, he said, once again, our slow start, it's costing us. They went down 8 points in the first 8 minutes and had to fight their way back in through that game, didn't get it to the last 10. So you don't want to be in that sort of battle with these guys here. They get out to a jump, that's what I mean. Yeah. You've got to be in it right from the get-go.
You can't do that for 26 rounds in a season. We've talked about that too. So, look, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think now I'm going into all of these games, Kempy, thinking that sure, the Warriors are a chance. We've seen the potential that they've got in there rather than thinking it's a foregone conclusion. And when we looked at the schedule at the start, and I keep coming back to this, we only picked 2 or 3 wins of the first sort of 10 games. So the fact that they're sitting where they are holds them in really, really good stead. Do you want to throw out a prediction for us? Be honest.
I am being honest. I think they're up against it this weekend. I think Cronulla, on the back of Nico Hines being back in the side and the confidence they got out of that last game, are going to be pretty hard to beat. I'm not going too far against it. The Warriors and the effort and the way that they put in their effort over the first month, I'm expecting them to do exactly the same, but they've got three very, very good players out of the side. I don't expect Tohu to play, which will add to Mitch Barnett and Tamari Martin missing. So it's about someone else stepping up here. And, Dylan Walker, Bailey Surin, I think Jazz Tavaga will start, and Tom Ale need very big games to keep them in it.
Well, just before we go to a break, and we're going to cover off some of the other big games, round 5 coming up this weekend, starting tomorrow night with the Eels and the Roosters, which is a very, very good game. The Eels coming off their first win of the season. But a text in here that says, how much of the result was the Sharks and how much was it St George sucking? And I mean, the Dragons, I said at the beginning of the season, wooden spoon favourites. They are in all sorts. It's a good question, that, Kempy. How much of it was the Sharks? How much of it was the Dragons?
Yeah, I think the second half they threw the towel in, definitely, St George. But, it's not about whether they threw the towel in. It's when that effort is needed to stay in the fight. If it drops to a certain level, then you've got players on the other side of the pitch that will actually make you pay. And in this case, that's what Cronulla did. And I think that effort across 80 minutes, if ever we needed one in the first half a dozen 8 rounds, it's against this Cronulla side. I reckon this here is a benchmark game. It gives you a really good look at actually where the Warriors are, because Cronulla are coming off a very good one. It's at home. They've played quite well against them in the past, the Warriors. Whether or not they can stay in this one for 80 minutes is the real question. But if they do, and they do get the win, I reckon this is the benchmark game. Then people are going to start to take things seriously.
Yeah, you're spot on. Litmus test for the Warriors this Sunday at 6 o'clock. We will take a short break here on SENZ. We're going to talk through some of the other big games coming up this weekend. If you want to have your say or give us a text, 8833. I would love to get your thoughts. Running it straight here on SENZ. Thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest specific wellbeing service provider. Yeah, 3:45 here on SENZ, running it straight myself alongside Kempy. We're going to go through the round 5, some of the other big games this weekend, but just before we do that, got Joey calling in from Auckland. If you call in, you get on straight away. G'day, Joey.
Yeah, g'day, Sam and Kempy. Look, what I've noticed with the Warriors this year, they've got a lot more starch in their defence, and especially in the forwards. You've got four players in your forwards. You've got Wade Egan, you've got Barnett, you've got Tohu Harris, and you've got, say, Jazz Tavaga. They're going to make round about 40 tackles a game, each, at least. So there's 160 tackles. So the big boppers, like Whanua Blake and that, then don't have to make as many tackles. And so when they get a chance to run with the football, they're going to run with the football, obviously, with more energy as well. Also, too, you've got your wingers and everyone else going, hey, they're putting in the effort. So, the wingers will come in and then go, well, I'm going to put the effort in as well. I'm going to come in off the wing and take it up twice in one set of 6. And also, too, with Johnson at the moment, when he's running with the football last year, he only had 1 runner. Now he's got at least 2 runners when he's running across ways. Mm-hmm. And you don't know whether he's going to give the ball as the defence on the other side. You don't know whether he's going to give the ball to the first guy, the second guy, or go himself. So that actually makes it even harder for the defensive side to set up, because you think, is Johnson going to give it to him? No, him, no. And then Johnson goes because he's playing a lot better, which I didn't see that last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, the players in motion, Joey, are you liking the way that they're actually, especially the middle guys, are tipping the ball onto each other too and offering up something different other than just one out running?
Yeah, well, also, too, you've got, look, I was a little bit suspect about Dylan Walker coming over with an injury from Manly, wasn't going well. He's playing out of his skin, so he's coming onto the paddock at number 14, and he's putting a massive effort in as well. So then the guys that are coming off at 15, 16, and 17 going, look at him go, we're going to go, and they're all jumping on the bandwagon and going, I'm going to be as good as him as well. And that just breeds a lot more confidence, and therefore the team morale, obviously, when they get behind as well, they go, oh, we're only behind by 8. We can come back and roll these guys. It's not a problem because we know how good we are. They're believing in themselves, and they're a hell of a lot fitter side. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Joey. Appreciate your call, mate. 0800 150 811. If you do want to ring in and have your say, some good points made from Joe there, particularly around Sean Johnson, who we've said many times, Kempy now has a few more options. It's really opening up his attack, which is fantastic to see. Some of the other games going on this weekend in the NRL, there are a few really tasty clashes tomorrow night, in particular at 10 p.m. from Allianz in Sydney. It's the Roosters up against the Eels, and the Roosters who sit in fifth spot thanks to a bye. They got 2 free points there. The Eels picking up their first win of the season over the Panthers on Thursday night last week, which is a fantastic game. Kempi, do you think that's enough to jog the wheels on the Eels sort of cart and push them up, or do you think the Roosters, fresh off a bye, are going to come in and sweep them? Yeah,
look, they do have a chance out there because there's no Joey Manu running out with the suspension that he's picked up. But they did look good once Jared Warrior-Hargraves and Brendan Smith got back into the game the week before, and yes, the Eels got it against Penrith, but I just I quite like how the Roosters are building, and the Eels, again, with that Clint Cuthbertson comment that he might not be here. I think there's some disruption in that Eels camp that we're not hearing about, and probably a little bit of action happening off the field that's going to stop them from from producing their best.
Going into this game 3-1, a lot better than going in 4-0, which they could have done. 0-4 if they.
And who would have thought out of all those games they beat Penrith?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you reckon? Give me a prediction.
I'm picking the Roosters to win
By
a close one.
A close one? Yeah.
Another close
4
one.
points, yeah. I think I'm going to pick the Roosters as well, simply because it's back at Allianz and they've had the week off, so I think they've got the edge. The other one that I've highlighted can be more out of interest to anything. It is Penrith going up to Canberra on Friday night at 8 p.m. So up in Canberra, where we know it's tough to travel, the Raiders are sitting in 16th place, just the one win, and like the Eels, they've got all these off-field disruptions now with Jack White and his claims saying that he might not have a long-term future with the club personally, maybe looking to sign, and he's not even available for the Raiders this week, so he's not even playing. What do you reckon with Penrith? Because they haven't hit the straps that they hit in 2022, and a game like the one they had against the Eels was their bread and butter last year and the year before. It's the one that they stick in and they win it at the end. They didn't last Thursday night. There's a sense that maybe things are shifting a little bit. Could this be a bogey game for them up in Canberra?
Look, I don't think so. I think with Isaiah Yell signing that long-term contract through to 27, yes, they've got Liam Martin that's still not back in the side, and of course on the other side, Jack White and going to open market, I think, which is the smartest thing that kid's ever done. There's just, again, distractions with the Raiders, and of course the Panthers coming off a loss. With the signing of Yale just gets them over the line. What it did show me, though, that loss against the Eels for Penrith is that they are beatable this year, and I think it's showing that there is an opportunity here for teams that are at the top of the table to not be too sceptical about going up against the Panthers in any of those games, not just leading up into the semis or the finals, but for the rest of the year. And I'm going to say, I think the Panthers get beat a few more times this year.
Yeah. Yep. So, but an easy win against Canberra, do you think?
I think they go. I think coming off a pretty gutting loss, the way that Nathan Cleary kicks that magnificent drop goal and can't get the job done in clutch, the ice in his veins against the Eels last week, I think they bounce back. Got a minute to talk through the last big one, which I think is on Friday night at 10 p.m. It's the Rabbitohs and the Storm. 8th plays 9th. Both teams we know are very, very dangerous, but are still needing to hit their straps too. The Storm, of course, still without Jerome Hughes. What do you reckon? I think this game shows you the slide that the Storm are on. I think the Rabbitohs get the job done, and it's just going to show you where the Storm are at, and they're going to be fighting out for the 8 this year. The Storm? The Storm. Where do you put the Rabbits at the moment? I've still put them in the top 4. I think that they're the best attacking team in the competition. I think Cody Walker's the premier 5'8" going around at the moment. I still think they need to put a few things together in the middle of the park, but once they do, they've got plenty of strike out the back. Right, I want to get the rest of the game's predictions from Kempy, but we will take a short break and we'll do that when we come back here on Running It Straight, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Welcome back into Running It Straight. We've got about a minute and a half before we hand over to the run home. Kempy, some of the other games this weekend, just quickly fire through them and get your thoughts. Seagulls night, Saturday at 5 p.m. Easy. Yep, at home for them. They're playing pretty well at the moment, actually, the Seagulls. Mate, they can score. So, and I'm picking that the Knights still struggling a bit. I would take them 20+. Lockie Miller, though, man, he's been a bit of a
bit of a pickup. Dragons Dolphins Saturday 7:30. It is up in Dragonstown, up at Wollongong. So Dolphins bounce back, get the dub.
No,
you don't think so?
No.
Wow.
I think the Dragons bounce back. I think this is really embarrassing for them this week. The whole Anthony Griffin saga. I think the Dragons get it.
Oh, interesting. Broncos West Tigers. That's as easy as certain as death.
West
in Texas.
Tigers are wooden spooners at the moment. They need something special.
And finally, Sunday 8:15 Bulldogs Cowboys. Actually, quite interesting that one.
Look, I like what the Cowboys did. I think Matt Burton, I don't think he likes New Zealand. I think he bounces back and gets it.
Okay, there you go. Those are Kempy's predictions for the weekend. We will discuss it all next Wednesday, hopefully after a Warriors win. The run home coming up next.